first reaction in hearing his comments are, what else is Joe Lacob going to say? Of course he feels that way, and he's done a great job, along with the other ownership, of putting together a really solid organization in Golden State, the type of team that they have. You look at not only what they've done in terms of winning and the roster they've compiled, but also just the front office consistency, the head coach and Steve Kerr, the new arena, which I have not been to yet, will be out there in a couple weeks, but by all accounts, it is first class and a beautiful place to play. If you get to be in the Bay, you get to be in San Francisco, and all the things. It's an attractive place for any free agent. I think when it comes to Kevin Durant, though, he wanted a change and he wanted something different. He spoke multiple times about just his decision and why it felt like it was time for him to try something new. And I think with any player, and I feel strongly about this, when you are a free agent, you have the agency to choose what you want, where you want to be, get a different experience. And so for Joe Lacob to say that, I feel like it's the obvious statement, because you've done everything you can to try and make this a place that someone like Kevin Durant, someone that, you know, throughout the course of what that group has done, you want to continue. But to me, it's not surprising.
Well, so I agree it's not surprising, and there's only one part of Joe Lacob's comment that I take any issue with. The vast majority of it he was pitch perfect on, and obviously it runs in absolute opposition to famously what Dan Gilbert said about LeBron when LeBron left a decade ago and scorched earth. Joe Lacob said, of course he has the right, you know, we wish him the best, said all the right things in that regard. The one part that I take issue with is maybe the wrong word, that I disagree with, is where he said, I felt close to Kevin, I felt like I knew Kevin. Well, if you felt close to Kevin, felt like you knew Kevin, then this move absolutely couldn't have made no sense. This move I don't know Kevin at all personally, but I know enough people close to Kevin and know enough about Kevin that this move made so much sense. We were telegraphing it 18 months before he made it. Steve Kerr was worried that this could happen at the end of year 2. Kerr knew it was going to happen once they were into year 3. Now, I was not expecting him to pick your Brooklyn Nets. I thought he was going to pick the New York Knicks. But for Kevin Durant, let me do something I don't do very often in the show. Let me tirelessly defend Kevin Durant here. For him, what he wanted, what he wants to accomplish, it was the perfect decision. It was the clear-cut right decision. He had done all he had come to do in Golden State, and he realized that despite the winning and the success and the finals MVPs and the shots over LeBron, there was still, I don't want to say an emptiness, because that feels too dark. There was still a hole left to fill in his basketball soul, so to speak. So he's got to go try to fill it somewhere else. And God bless him, I hope he does, because he has another mountain to climb. And you can have the greatest mountain in the world. What's the one in Seattle everyone loves? Rainier? Like, it's probably okay, you can, maybe that's the most beautiful mountain in the world. Once you've climbed it 3 times, maybe you go to a less attractive one because you've never climbed it. And he's trying to climb a new mountain that for him is the only box left to check. And I know people get annoyed when analysts say this, but one title in Brooklyn absolutely would mean more than 2 more in Golden State, and I think Katie knows that.
I think on top of it, too, Kevin Durant wanted to play with some of his best friends. Like, the idea that who you surround yourself with, as I know the two of you know very well, have the wonderful opportunity to work with one another every morning. Best of friends.
BFFs. Best friends forever.
But that's a factor. And I think from the outside, a lot of times people don't fully understand how entrenched you are with the people with your team. Showing up every morning, whether it's rehab, whether it's practice, on the road, travel. This becomes your family. And so this is something which, you know, I know it's been said that they had talked about during the time between him and Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan when they were playing with Team USA, how incredible would it be if we all played together. But you also, and I'll say this from the inside, looking at a well-structured organization that also has a beautiful arena, that also has a great practice facility, that's in a different market that Kevin Durant
also in
desired
awesome
to
city.
be in. You're in New York City.
Yeah.
He's a businessman as well. So there was a variety of aspects that I think you could point to as you have, that this was a decision for Kevin Durant that certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yes, but also yes, Kevin Durant's a quirky guy, and he's a fickle guy, and he's seemingly unsatisfied all the time. We kind of question the move from OKC to go play for a team that just beat you. We scratched our heads a little bit, but now you kind of get it. He's going to do things on his own timeline, in his own heart, the way he wants to do it. I don't know why Joe Lacob was totally surprised by this. The move to come to his team was a little bit surprising as well.
It comes from, and this can be a loaded term, so I don't mean it in a bad way. It comes from a place of privilege. Joe Lacob basically saying, how could anyone not want us? Which really is, how could anyone not want me? I'm the light years ahead owner. I'm the owner that put this whole thing together. I'm the owner that saw the writing on the wall that you could come here initially. All we did was win, then win again, then be in position potentially to win again, and then just get cut down by injury after injury after injury. There's no reason to think that as soon as you and Clay were healthy, we would be, I mean, if KD had stayed, the Warriors obviously this year would be a mess anyway because of all the, because Clay and KD wouldn't be playing, but they would go into next year, no matter what Giannis does in the finals this year, no matter what LeBron does in the finals this year, they would go into next year as the overwhelming favorites, even if Clay and KD hadn't played basketball since last NBA Finals. So Joe Lacob, there's an element of, and I don't know his whole life story, but he hasn't had, I would imagine, a lot of people in business say, nah, bro, I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm fine on the other side of this. And so I understand his personal pride being wounded. But, Jenna, you're absolutely right. Kevin Durant went to Golden State, and we didn't, for me, I shouldn't say we, I didn't like it from a competitive balance standpoint, from a just regular competition standpoint, from an NBA history standpoint. But if what he thought was, my number one goal is the quickest possible path to a championship and to play in a smarter offense, then it makes perfect sense in that regard. And if his next number one goal is to expand his business empire on the East Coast, if LeBron's set up on the West Coast, and to try to win a championship where he will unquestionably be the guy for a franchise that has never won one, certainly has never, they've been to the 2 finals with Kidd, but doesn't have a championship history and no one on the team has a championship pedigree other than his buddy Kyrie, then of course the move makes perfect sense. And so that's the part where Lacob, I think it probably is just a bad turn of phrase by him. I can't imagine the day of free agency, Sarah, he thought KD was coming back.
And that's where there's a difference between I was surprised and it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And so maybe he was not surprised, but in continuing to reflect on it still does not make sense to him.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.